Okay, let's jump into it. Thanks everyone for taking the time to join us on our live stream today. Really excited for today's live stream. Today we're going to be continuing with our weekly Adelaide market update, keep you guys abreast of what the market's doing. For all of you looking to purchase in Adelaide, whether you're looking for your own home or whether you're looking for an investment property, we'll cover pretty much everything you need to know. The particular area we'll be focusing on today is the city of Playford. So as usual, what we cover in these webinars, we have insight from a local expert. We'll talk about what the market is doing, and we'll look at some of the local, like the particular LGA that we're looking at, which today is Playford. We'll look at the population, demographics, some data on the area, understanding the long-term perspectives, and then we'll look at some short-term data on a particular suburb as well. Today's suburb of choice is Elizabeth Park. And then finally, we'll look at a few of the recently solds in the area through our guest host, as well as some others that have been sold, and primarily get insight into the local market, what's happening, and again, what you can do to secure your property that you're looking for. Before we get into any of that, let's jump into actually welcoming our guest. So today we have Luke Alexander. Thanks for joining us, Luke. Luke, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell everyone here a little bit about yourself. So yeah, just so we can get started.
Yeah, no worries. So obviously I'm the director of professionals, Elizabeth. So basically, we service the whole Playford area and also pushing out to the Gawler region as well. Basically I've been basically by myself on starting the business probably about 2 years ago. Prior to that, been with some of the large franchises, selling and also managing rent rolls as well. Now got my own business and going well.
Awesome. Congratulations on that, Luke. What like pushed you to get started on your own? What was the motivation?
Basically, I had my own focus and also I suppose my way of sort of viewing how clients should be treated and looked after. So I had a different view than my previous employer, and that's sort of what drove me into, well, I think I can provide a better customer service than what a lot of the competitors are doing. So that's basically what led me to take the jump and do it myself. And we're growing at a steady rate.
Beautiful. No, that's awesome to hear, Luke. And yeah, definitely looking forward to getting your insight and hopefully people who will do the plug at the end, but anyone looking to sell their property in Adelaide, definitely, especially in that northeast block over there, Playford, Gawler, definitely Luke is someone you should touch base with. Anyway, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what we're here for today, right? So today we're here to talk about Adelaide, as we always are, right? So let's start off broad as possible, update on Adelaide as a city, no specific area. So this is from RESA, Real Estate Institute of South Australia. So we can see that like the weekly change is still aggressive. So over the last this is I think updated for May 19th. So for last week, weekly change of 0.5% across Adelaide, higher than pretty much all the other capital cities, 1.5% over the last month, pretty close to matching Perth. I know a lot of the news around, like, just like all the news for us in Melbourne, Sydney, it's everyone's always talking about Perth, but a lot of people kind of miss what's happening in Adelaide, up at 1.5% as well. Year to date at 5.3%, and the last 12 months, 14.6. Obviously, this is Adelaide as a whole. What are things looking like on the ground to you, Luke? How are things moving? Do these numbers match with what you're seeing? Are they slightly below, slightly above? Would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so definitely, I think the stats are pretty well spot on. Adelaide is definitely still very, very strong. It's still very a vendor's market, so the sale prices that we're getting are definitely, I think they're still growing. So yeah, we're still getting some very good results in Adelaide, especially the Playford area is very sought after by first home buyers. The investors, definitely interstate investors, are really focused on the Playford area,
Yeah.
just because of it's still very, very affordable. So yeah.
And that's how we connected, right? Like deals from interstate investors, affordability, decent yield. What about moving forward? Like, so one of the things we hear a lot about Adelaide is that it's towards the end of its growth cycle. There's not much left in it. What are your thoughts around that? Agree, disagree, and why?
Yeah, so I still think I can't see us going too much more, like with the prices going up. I think we're pretty well. Adelaide's a very we have a boom, then we flatten out, then we have a boom, and so we're not sort of up and down. But yeah, definitely, I think we're getting to the top of the market, and I think we'll just pretty well just flat, just stay level and continue like that for a while.
And then,
Um, but then we do have a lot of new estates all around this northern area that are popping up. So obviously, I would say probably in the next 12 to 18 months, we'll probably have a bit more volume of stock coming to the market, which would obviously make a bit of a change with, um, with some pricing. Just with there'll be a lot more stock coming available compared to what at the moment there's compared to the buyers to the available stock. Yeah, we're still very much a vendor's market.
yeah, stock on market. I don't think it's just Adelaide. It's like pretty much Australia wide, but
Yeah,
Adelaide and Perth are like pretty crazy. It's so low. Like we'll look at some of the data for stock on market later on, but it's extremely low. Anyway, that's some really good insights. Thanks for that, Luke. Let's jump next into like one area of your specialty. So, City of Playford has seen some really aggressive growth over the last 4 to 5 years. A lot of those suburbs in and around Elizabeth Vale, up close to 100%, right? Just this is some data. I don't think these are all of the suburbs. These are just a few of them. You
yeah,
see, even over the last 1 year, Elizabeth North up 26%, Elizabeth Downs up 22%, Andrew Farms 21%, like varying, right? But like all of them up quite a decent amount, right?
yeah.
Uh, does this align with what you're seeing and on the ground and what's happening? And if so, what are the factors that you see driving? I guess let's start off with first people living in Adelaide who want to buy homes in this particular area.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. There's been a lot of shift from more of your professionals and people that were sort of more, they might live in Adelaide, work in Adelaide, but due to like we've had the Northern Expressway and Connector all, so it basically takes you about 20 to 30-minute drive now to get into the city. So a lot of people are looking at more we can get more for our money in the north than being, that close to the city, and it's still an easy commute. We've got obviously a lot of public transport, train stations, like the works is all out here. Plus, you've got a lot of shopping centres. Just really, you don't have to go into the city for for half your stuff. Like you've got everything out here that you need.
Really?
But a lot of it as well is like the Playford Council has done some rezoning in some of the areas as well. So now, obviously, you can subdivide. A lot of these blocks are sitting on about, let's say, 6 to even 900 square meter blocks. Some of these older double brick homes. and that's where you can obviously get a good deal on these rundown sort of double brick homes on good sized land, and then they're basically getting, even up to 3 to 4 houses on the block. So there's a lot of development potential in the area, and that's where a lot of the buyers I'm seeing are quite a few, investors, trying to snap up a lot of parcels of land in the area as well. So yeah, definitely, it's there's a lot going on for sure.
No, that's really good insight. And I think like one of the things that I see driving certain inquiries of buyers we get to Elizabeth is that like purchasing something that's subdividable on a decent sized block in a capital city, it's pretty much just Playford that's left at that low 500K, late
Yeah,
400K range, right? Perth no longer possible. Maybe like once in a while you might get a rare deal here and there in certain blocks, but most of the subdividable opportunities in Perth are now at least in the late 500s, probably up and beyond if they're decent land size, right? So
yeah.
I think a lot of those, we get a lot of inquiries, quite a few clients that we've closed on in the area that are like, look, we want in the 800, 900 square meters, even if it's at the end of the growth cycle, something that we can build 3 to 4 on, or even retain and build at the back. Uh, One question for some of the viewers, and I'm sure a lot of interstate investors would be really interested to get your insight. You mentioned that a few areas are being rezoned and like a lot of this stuff is happening. For an interstate investor who's looking to pick up something that they can do as a development project, which are some of your favorite suburbs in Playford that you'd push them to or you'd recommend, maybe like a couple?
So this is for if they were wanting to redevelop
Yeah,
or just,
redevelop. Whether it's like
yeah.
build back or knock down and build three, which are some of the ones that you like?
Yeah, so definitely, like Davron Park, you can get some really good deals in there. There's still a bit of a stigma with the suburb. It did, years back have, it was basically the worst suburb in Adelaide. But there's the Playford Council, and also how the Housing Trust has sort of sold off a lot of the housing trusts out of that area now. So it has gone into like the public hands, or so the private hands. So that's where the suburb is making a change. So you can still get some pretty good deals in that area, and you're looking at roughly around the 700 to 800 square meters as an average sort of block.
Beautiful.
But definitely we still got lots of those old housing trusts, masonettes, where you got the two properties joined by the common wall. So we're getting a few of them popping up where you're getting both properties. So if you can pick both up, knock them down, you could get 4 to 5 houses depending on the actual block. But yeah, so those masonettes can be very good, to pick up. You might get both of them for, if you get some sort of rundown ones, you're probably looking about 600 or 700 for two properties. So yeah, definitely if you can pick some of them up, and then even the rent on those, you're getting up towards the $400 a week to rent those out. So if you rent both of them, there's 800 a week you're sort of getting. But yeah, definitely Davron Park is one to look out for. Elizabeth North and Downs, also, yeah, pretty good for your development sites. But there is, I think Lakeview has had some rezoning in that area just recently. So there is pockets of farmland still past Blake's Crossing, which was a new estate from a few years ago. But that's pretty well like your newer estate of the area. And yeah, so there's all farmland still there, which that's all been rezoned now. So that's that sort of areas that we're trying to target now to try and obviously get those buyers to those vendors to come on board to sell and sort of go from there. So yeah, so definitely Blakeview, if you can get some of the vacant land in that area, definitely be a good option as well.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I'm a big fan of those masonette, but like those type of properties where it's like basically like a duplex. And
Yep,
if you pick up both of them, I picked up a couple, not for myself, obviously, for clients early last year, and they haven't even started the process of developing. They'll probably do it in 3 to 4 years, and the yield is up at like pretty much like early 7%. So after the first like after the first rental increase, when we purchased them
yep,
initially, like the rent was quite low because they already had the tenants in, jumped up the rent quite a bit, and now they're like early 7% on the purchase price, which is really good for the clients. Pretty, I wouldn't say positive cash flow, but pretty close to neutral. And they're quite young and they're like ready to, I guess, develop them later on, right? So I really like that type of purchase. It is getting quite pricey, but like if you had made those purchases, I think like early last year, really good buy. Beautiful.
yep,
Thanks
yep.
for that insight. I'm actually fine. I'm learning myself over here. So this is really good. Let's jump into, I guess, some of the broader statistics around City of Playford. So home ownership roughly around 58%. I think this data is from around a month or so ago. So if it's shifted a little bit here and there, don't hold us to it. But home ownership 58%. Household composition, we can see 20% couples, 28% couple and children. So I think like with home ownership, I generally look for areas that are like preferably 60% plus, but generally some of these more affordable areas, they're slightly on the lower end, which is understandable. There's more renters in the area. I think this data all makes sense. It's pretty basic. Again, employment by industry, health, social assistance, retail, manufacturing, aggressive population growth with a lot of those new areas coming up that you mentioned. I think the one question that I have over here, which a lot of people have around Playford, is the social stigma around it, right? Like a lot of people are like, oh, that's like housing commission central. A lot of these suburbs, if you just go to like microburbs, the software, and you look at like housing commission in a lot of the suburbs in Playford, they're really high, and people like high social housing. How would you? Let's maybe start off with people who want to buy their own home in Playford. How would you address that question to homeowners who are scared of live or aren't really happy about living in an area that has that stigma? What has changed to make it more livable?
Yeah, so the Playford Council have really invested into the area now, so they're really doing a cleanup. So like you've got a development area like they call it the Playford Alive. So that's basically like the government basically clearing out a lot of that housing trust stuff and they're building brand new properties and it's a lot more own occupiers going in those areas. And then basically, if you're looking at somewhere to live yourself, I would probably recommend like your Blakeview, Craigmore, even like your Manapara West is a sought after area as well. There's a lot going on in Andrews Farm with new builds, so that's also yeah, quite a own occupier area as well. But investment wise, definitely I would stick to so it really depends on the areas or your affordability, those sorts of things. But yeah, like your Elizabeth suburbs, Elizabeth Park, I would probably say is one of your better Elizabeth suburbs. There's a lot of private schools, public schools. You got local shops. It just has a nice little community feel in that area. So yeah, there isn't as much of a bad vibe from that area. But you look at places like your Smithfields, your Davron Park has some newer parts, but then it has like your old sort of housing trust areas as well. But like Elizabeth Vale has last time I looked at that one, I reckon it was about 80% were rentals in that suburb. So there's a lot more rentals in that area, but then you're you're basically close to the Long McEwen Hospital. That's all being redeveloped as well. So there's a lot going on close to the hospital.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely yeah. I would say you are right with the like there is a lot of like your people on Centrelink and that, but still there's a lot of everyday Aussies, trying to make a living, and they do all the right things that you ask for them as tenants. So um, to be honest, I've been dealing with the northern suburbs for about 20 years now, and yeah, there is a lot of good people in the area. So yeah, just because they're on Centrelink doesn't mean they're not good tenants. So yeah, so no, you definitely the area does still attract decent tenants.
Yeah, and I think the thing for me with the thing that I really like about not like but like one of my theses around like that whole North Adelaide block, I'm just pulling it up on Google Maps, is there is that like lack of land supply because of like this zoning with the military base over here. So it's like
Yeah,
what would usually happen is like Salisbury would just keep like city of Salisbury would, like it just keep on extending, right? And you'd have all these new houses
yeah,
over here. But because
yeah,
that has been that's like special zoning, right?
yeah,
Then it's kind of like had this weird direction in the way that it's developed, which for your investors, it's kind of created that like artificial lack of supply, which I guess drives a lot of the has driven that low supply in the area, or one of the factors that's driving the low supply and causing growth, right? I think the other thing is with a lot of these types of areas, they go through a stage of gentrification, right? And that's what we're seeing uh in like Playford as a whole. It is going through that process where it's going from like I guess a stigmatized lower SES suburb and becoming more of a like progressing into becoming a middle class suburb over time, which
yeah.
for investors and good for or like and good for homeowners as well. Beautiful. Let's jump into, I guess, some of the main economic highlights. I think you've already mentioned a few of these, just so it shows that you're 2 steps ahead of the game. Stuff that we had to put on slides, you've already mentioned. So I think like a big one is there's that hospital over there. I'm a big fan of that Elizabeth Vale suburb. I know you had a cracker property in Elizabeth Vale recently that we actually tried to close in a client with you guys, but you guys got a great price on it. So didn't fit within the budget, but I'm a big fan of Elizabeth Vale, and driving a lot of that growth is the Lyle McEwen Hospital. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that suburb and the hospital, and what are some of your thoughts around that specifically?
Yeah, so just the hospital itself. So you've got the hospital on one side of Haydown Road. On the other side used to be just a little deli and a few little medical, clinics. So it used to be very small. Now it's a multi-story complex getting built with, I think it's got a Foodlands there now, and so there's a lot going on. Yeah, just a lot of redevelopment just in that little precinct there. Plus, you've got local schools close by. You've got public transport to the Elizabeth Shopping Centre, but also to the CBD. So you've just got everything in one little suburb, pretty much. So it's very very easy to commute anywhere. But yeah, but it is a very like investor focus. So there definitely more investors, like investment properties in that suburb compared to owner occupiers. But yeah, it is right on the border of Salisbury as well. So you are sort of bordering onto that Salisbury section. So,
And even
but no, it definitely is a very good suburb.
yeah, even Salisbury has gone through like massive growth over the last
Yeah,
5 years. Like some of the properties we picked up for clients a year or so ago. They're up like even a couple of years ago, up crazy, crazy amounts. Beautiful. All right. So, a couple of the other things, we'll just very quickly touch on these. So, some of the main Playford highlights that we have over here. And again, I think you mentioned a few of them. Fastest growing LGA in Australia in terms of in South Australia in terms of population. Population growth always a big driver of growth of property prices and what's available. Affordable housing and high yields. I'm pretty sure Playford has the best yields in South Australia or like in Adelaide. Probably Salisbury was at a similar level, but I think Salisbury's prices are now a bit on the higher end, so its yields have taken a bit of a hit. Multiple major job nodes, Playford Health Hub. You already mentioned the Playford Alive Town Centre redevelopment or development, and then South Australia's logistical and distribution capital, right? So these are, I think, a few of the major highlights. Are there any others that you think are like really big points that point toward the value of Playford that we've missed over here that you'd like to add?
Not really. I think you've covered, yeah, you've pretty well covered all of it. Yeah, no, I think you pretty well covered all the major highlights. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Some of the future prospects, as we mentioned. And again, for all those watching, if you're interested in getting any data, you can message us or email us, and we'll send you our data, like data analysis docs on these different areas for free. And you can have a look at them just for people who are, trying to take notes and can't keep up. But some of the future prospects, as we mentioned, the Lyle McEwen Hospital upgrades to that the RAF base in Edinburgh, and like the spend on that is really big. The government spend on that, driving a lot of local jobs, a lot of people there, obviously, who need housing. GMH site revamp. These are like multiple companies that are setting up here in terms of their logistical centers, and then the Playford Alive project and what that's bringing to the area. So a lot of really good future prospects that's making Playford a more livable, a more interesting area, and yeah, just like a better place to invest and to live in. And I think like for me, one of the biggest things is like I know there's a lot of people who invest in rural areas, and we do that for quite a few of our clients as well. But I'm a big fan of if you can purchase in a capital city and it's in the right phase of growth, then like it's more predictable over time, most capital cities, right? So it is one of the most affordable capital cities out there, or like one of the most affordable spots within capital cities. And I think that's a big attraction for a lot of people. Okay. Before we jump into looking at some of the more short-term data, like days on market, so on and so forth, on a particular suburb, is there anything else, any other thoughts that you think are really good for our viewers to know about Playford, the suburb as a whole, and just any final insights, or the LGA as a whole, any final insights?
Yeah, so probably only thing I would say is if you want to go back to your Google Maps, there's an area that I really believe could be the next part to be rezoned. So you've got there McDonald Park, so just off Andrews Farm.
Yeah.
So right there, so you've got the Bunnings being built just off Curtis Road or on Curtis Road there. They're now building, I think there's some petrol stations going there. Just across, so off Frisbee Road, that's all being redeveloped, where you've got the church. Yeah, so all that area in there, across the road from the church, sorry, that's all redevelopments going on in there. So this McDonald Park is basically it's still zoned as rural, and all the allotments are minimum 1 hectare.
Mm.
So we just sold one in there for about 1.1, and basically the amount of developers starting to like, yeah, we were getting bombarded by developers on that
Basically,
one.
people trying to pick up some land and wait for rezone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So I definitely feel there's basically like new developments going on right around it just seems to be McDonald Park's right in the middle of what's being all rezoned. So I do feel this could be the next area to get rezoned. So I do feel, yeah, definitely if your investors are looking to look at sort of long-term projects, that could be one to try and yeah, pick up. But yeah, if you get 1 hectare of land and then that gets rezoned to 300 square meter blocks or something, you can
You're
definitely
laughing.
yeah, that's it. So yeah, we're definitely seeing some developers starting to shift their focus to McDonald Park. And yeah, as I said, it's at the moment zoned as rural, but minimum 1 hectare of land for each allotment. So definitely, I'm sort of thinking maybe in the next, say, 2 to 3 years, I predict that's going to get rezoned, and that's going to be the new area for estates popping up in the north.
Beautiful. No, that's really insightful. In fact, like those are kind of the golden nuggets that we host these webinars for, right? Like those that deep insight from local experts is more valuable than anything else. So that's really insightful. Again, for everyone, remember to do your own due diligence. These videos, webinars are just for information's sake. At the end of the day, make sure to run your own analysis. But thanks for that, Luke. That's actually really, really insightful. Beautiful. So that's City of Playford. Let's jump into the suburb Elizabeth Park and some of the data around it. Again, we're just going to power through it. There's no specific reason we picked up Elizabeth Park. We mainly picked it up just to show like most of these suburbs are seeing similar numbers. We're not going to look at each number very specifically. We're just going to kind of use it to show you, I guess, like to me, that supply is still really tight in these areas and competition is still very heavy. And I guess that's what's going to drive that's what's been driving some of the short-term growth and what's going to continue driving the short-term growth. If you want these PDFs with data analysis on any of these suburbs, feel free to reach out to us. So yeah, looking at Elizabeth Park, owners to renters 51 to 49, kind of as Luke already mentioned. Some of those lower Elizabeth suburbs, they do have a high percentage of renters, a lot of people owning investment properties over there. We can see that over the last 3 months, up 7.6%, last 12 months, up 25%. A lot of people were saying, Adelaide, like towards the beginning of last year, people were saying Adelaide doesn't have much left in it, but very clearly does. The question is, how much does it have left in it moving forward? Uh, Population around 4,500, distance from CBD 25 kilometers, crime score 34 out of 100, which is slightly on the higher end, and median weekly household income, again on the lower end, which is what we expect of like this area, few lower socioeconomic suburbs, right? Vacancy at 0.85%. So, Luke, do you want to tell us a little bit about, I guess, what you're seeing on the rental market side of things? How quickly are properties getting rented out? How competitive is the rental market in Elizabeth Park or broadly City of Playford?
Yeah, so pretty well. uh, I haven't got too many properties that sit vacant for longer than like a week or two at max. So they're yeah, we're basically doing one open, and we've got lines of people coming to those opens. So we're having to actually so we use programs so people register to attend opens. We're having to actually set cap limits on the amount of people coming. Is just yeah, it, it's a bit overcrowded sometimes if you don't do it. So yeah, we are seeing a lot of activity. We have noticed since I reckon probably the last 2 weeks, probably the application levels have slowed down a little bit.
Interesting.
But that's pretty common when it's coming into winter. We do get yeah, a bit of a downside with people not wanting to move and all those sorts of things. But
I want to move out of
definitely
my
it's still Yeah, that's it.
It's like
The thing
moving
about I
houses.
don't
That
want to.
sounds crazy. I can't even move out of bed.
Yeah, that's it. They're like, no, I'm not moving in the rain, Jesus. So, yeah, no. So, but still very, very strong. Yeah, anywhere like I've got one at Elizabeth East I'm renting, and I reckon I've got about 35 applications pending on that one. And yeah, but a lot of it's to do with affordability. Obviously, we're looking at, can obviously if it's someone on, job seeker or something like that, it's they're looking at probably about a bit over 700 a fortnight for that sort of income. So that's where we're, obviously having to look at their affordability side of things, but still, no, we're definitely very, very strong with the rental position at this stage.
Yeah, and I think it's like again primarily just because supply is so low, right? It's like there's just not
Yeah,
enough houses to rent, right?
yeah,
So yeah, the vacancy, I guess it seems like the numbers align with what you're seeing on the ground, probably even more aggressive, going really fast, multiple. So it's like if you're someone buying in the area, you probably don't have to worry too much about like is my property going to be vacant? How long is it going to be vacant for? So on and so forth. So yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
good to hear. Uh, Median price days on market over here that says days on market at around 20 to 29 days on average. That actually this is for sales, not for rent. That actually feels slightly on the higher end.
yeah,
Is again, 29 days is a very low number. We can see over the last 3 years it's aggressively dropped from 80 days all the way down to like I think hit at the lowest, hit like low 20s, even in the teens, and now up to the mid to late 20s, which again does show like that there's a decent amount of demand and lower supply. Does this align with what you're seeing? Some of the properties that you're selling, is this roughly how long they're being held for?
So days on market, I think that yeah definitely is probably a bit high. Yeah, I'm sort of averaging pretty well. It's my properties sort of go under contract after maybe one or two opens, so I'm sort of looking at pretty well 14 days they're under contract. So that data could vary. It really depends when an agent sort of tells the realestate.com domain, all those sites,
Yeah.
when it's actually gone to contract. Sometimes they
Yeah.
go, yeah, it's settled. So the 30 days could be, yeah, the settlement period.
Yeah.
So
Like I know some
yeah,
agents, they only update it once finance is unconditional or something like
yeah,
that. Okay,
yes, yeah,
beautiful. So even more tight than what we're seeing over here, days on
yeah,
market. So
yeah.
I want to quickly power through this because I'm wary of time and there's a few important points I want to discuss. But very quickly, online demand growing and quite high. Sales listings very low, six for the whole suburb of Elizabeth Park. And that's both houses and units combined. We can see it's decreased from 30 all the way down to single digits, which again shows that very low stock on market. Oh, here we have stock on market, 0.34%, very low. Again, highlighting that low supply. Median rent, this number for units doesn't look accurate. It looks like the data is missing, so apologies for that. Median rent, we can see progressively growing and still on the up, with median rental decreasing, not because rent has decreased, but because the growth of price has outpaced the growth of rent. But I think a lot of the properties that we've picked up in Elizabeth and Playford as a whole generally are around that early to mid 5% yields. That's generally where things land. Does that align with what you see as well?
Yeah, a lot of the properties we end up putting on the market, a lot of the rents are probably a lot lower than what the market rent should be as well. So especially if people have had tenants in there for a few years, the landlords seem to, want to look after them, don't obviously want to jump it too high. And yeah, we've had some tenancies, tenants have been there for a while, and then we've just had this boom, and we've had to increase some rents by between $50 to $100 a week because of just the way the market's gone. So definitely, quite a few of those rentals that I see could probably be increased quite a bit. With whoever buys. So yeah, definitely there's movement there.
Yeah, and I tell a lot of my clients, if you're picking something with existing tenants, if as long as the appraised rent is good, if the existing rent is a little bit low, there's 3, 4 months on the on the on the contract left with the tenants, might as well take that lower yield and then jump it when you get to that point, right? No point on
Yeah.
deal just for 2 to 3 months of lower rent. And then the final point over here, we can see development approval for houses have dropped drastically. I think this is something we're seeing Australia wide, primarily because building costs are a lot higher than they used to be. So amount of new builds coming are not as much, and that lack of supply is again what's driving growth. I don't think this is just an Adelaide phenomenon. This is very much an Australia-wide phenomenon. Seeing this in a lot of the Perth numbers, Adelaide numbers, Brisbane numbers. You'll see a lot of the DA approval for houses comparing 2022, 23, 21 to 2024. I mean, this is a very big decrease, right? From 2069 to 415. That's pretty massive. Anyway, I want to tie it off by looking at some of the recently solds. But before looking at some of the recently solds, I think I want to ask a pretty important question, which I think is will be really beneficial for the people who are watching today. What can buyers do to better assess how they should purchase a property in the area? I think like the biggest mistake we're seeing in a lot of these hot markets are people are consistently underbidding and then they end up losing on the property and they don't purchase for 5 to 6 months. What can home buyers, investors, I mean, apart from using a BA, which we would recommend, but leaving that part out, assuming they're going on their own, or even for BAs, what can they do to better help themselves secure properties in this area?
Yeah, so definitely like you just mentioned, yeah, we're getting a lot of people coming and thinking it's like a buyer's market still. So there's a lot of people coming in with really low ball offers. I always go back to and go, is this actually your final offer? Because I can't guarantee I'm gonna come back. And yeah, they still think it's not a strong market sort of thing. So yeah, a lot of people are getting obviously a bit upset that they miss out on the opportunity, but yeah, like we're getting people putting in some very very strong offers. So definitely try and put your best foot forward, even if yeah, most agents like just ask, sort of for a guide. And we'll obviously we can't tell you a exact price. That is a lot of my sales. We do a lot of the best offers by and all those sorts of campaigns. So we can't give a actual figure. But if you go, is it going to be sort of in the 450 to 500, are we sort of in that mark? I'm fine to say, yeah, you'll be around the mark. So I'm always ask the agent, for a bit of a guide. We're always, happy to sort of give you a bit of guidance. But yeah, definitely don't try and underbid sort of thing. So but yeah, also look at realestate.com, look at those sort of sites where you can sort of look at previously sold properties that are pretty comparable. Then you should be able to get a pretty good guide on what the price is going to be.
I think I think like my best piece of advice in these really hot markets like Adelaide and Perth is when you're doing your CMA, when you're looking at recently solds, don't look at 6 months back. Because usually when people do a CMA, they do it in the last 6 months. These markets are too hot to look at 6 months ago, right?
Yeah,
You should be looking at the last 1 to 2 months, right? And even then, you should probably add on an extra couple of percent to account for the 1 to 2 months that have passed. A lot of people, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, the property three doors down sold 8 months ago for 480K, so I'm gonna bid at 480K. And I'm like, okay, if you don't want to buy the property, bid at 480K, because I can guarantee you it's gonna sell for at least 520, right? Like, even if they're not my clients, right? Like, I mean, just people talking to me, stuff like that. So I think really in these hot markets, if you're going to colder markets like Melbourne, we're picking up some areas in Melbourne that are still at they're still coming into their growth cycle. Feel free to, look at comparables from 6 months ago, pretty much be roughly similar. But in these hot markets, these sellers markets, you need to be looking at recently sold from the last 1 to 2 months. And on top of that, I mean, like if we look at the like literally the data over here, Adelaide has grown in the last 1 month 1.5%. So if you look at a recently sold from that's very comparable. Add 1.5% on top of it if you want to be competitive, right? That's
Yeah.
my big piece of advice. I hope it's helpful. But yeah, let's look at a few recently solds, right? We'll pick up a couple, and I just want to get some of your thoughts on it. Like I believe these two were yours. I don't think we
Yeah.
have time for many more. I just want to understand, like obviously there's only so much information you can divulge, but like how the campaign went and basically what the level of competition was like, so on and so forth, right? So we'll start with this one over here, 58 Ashfield Road, Elizabeth, sold for 472, 1st of May. Talk us a bit through this campaign, what it looked like, and yeah.
Yeah, no worries. So, yeah, so this property, it was a beauty. It's basically a solid brick. Never, I don't think it's ever been touched. So we had tenant. I took this over from another agent, and I just said that there's so much maintenance you need to do to this place. So we ended up putting it on the market. Um, it needed underpinning. The whole top section had big cracks. To
It's
be
a
honest, I thought
project, right?
I thought it was going to be a demolish, but he's underpinning it and renovating it at the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, but no, this I reckon we had about there would have been over 30 people through the first open. And yeah, basically first open contract, and obviously we had to get through the subject of finance, and I think he stopped at a building inspection as well. So, but yeah, still brought it even with the building inspection, which I was surprised. So, but
I
no,
mean, it
and
goes to show that even a Reno project is selling for 58, sorry, for 472K. So shows that like the market is like, it's growing, right? Like most people, when they say 470K in Elizabeth, they think they're picking up a nice home. But I mean, it's a pretty good block of land and like, lots of
yeah,
potential with it. But that house itself, you can see from the pictures and everything you're saying, it needs some work, right? So
that's it. That's
it's
it.
a
Yeah,
very impressive sales price and like, good luck to the buyer as well. Let's look at this other one over here. So this one is 11 and 13 Lark Hill Road, Elizabeth North, sold for 805. Do you want to talk us through this one over here, what it looked like? I think this one fits what we were talking about earlier, that duplex style with like two separate rentals. What were
no,
your
these were two freestanding homes, same vendor.
oh,
But yeah, we had some developers off market that snatched that one up. The vendor thought he would only get about 700, so we blew his mind when we got an extra 100 grand for
there
it.
you
But
go.
yeah, they solid brick as well. A lot of movement throughout. Yeah, the homes very dated as well. But yeah, it's more the structural side of it. So, but no, the developers are going to be knocking them down. I think in July, and I think they're fitting 6 properties on the two allotments.
There you go. There you go. So, and that's two freestanding homes as well. Got a really good
Yeah,
price, knock it
yeah,
down. So it shows that developers are still picking up good stock in the area, and they're
yeah,
willing to pay that premium because they I mean if they're if they're willing to pay the premium, they know that the margins are there for it, right? So yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
congratulations on both those sales and thanks for the insight on both of them as well. I think that pretty much ties it up for today. Any final thoughts for those watching at home, Luke? Anything you want to leave them with around buying in Adelaide, city of Playford, before we tie it off?
Uh, No, not really. I think, yeah, we've pretty well covered a lot of the information. If you have any clients or anything that, even if they go, I really want to get something in this area, this sort of price range. So I've got a young lad who he actually goes door knocking. So that developer that picked up those two houses, we actually door knocked the whole. Basically the whole block because they wanted to pick up a lot more in that area. So yeah, definitely if anyone's looking for some off-market stuff, we can definitely do some door knocking if they've got any sort of areas in mind, and yeah, see what we can do.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Thanks for making the time today, Luke. To tie it off, we'll do our little thank you. Luke has been a great guest. If you guys need any help looking for properties or you just want to touch base with Luke around selling your property as well in Adelaide, especially specifically that northeast corridor up to Gawler as well. That's correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Including Gola as well. Definitely reach out to Luke from Professionals Elizabeth. I'm pretty sure your email is just luke@professionals.com.au. Is that correct? Or
Luke at professionalselizabeth.com.au.
Luke at Prof
And yeah, and we do property management as well. So if you've got any clients looking for property management in the area, we're definitely the go-to people.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. And then finally, on our end from Zaki Property, if you need any help buying an investment property in Adelaide, purchasing your own home in Adelaide, we have really strong connections with a lot of the real estate agents like Luke and others, and can definitely help you find a lot of the best off markets and help you to secure the property that you're looking for. So feel free to reach out to us if you need any help. Or even if you're just looking for some of these data documents, message us and we will send you a form to fill out. And then we will send you whichever suburb that you're looking for. Thanks for making the time and joining us today. We'll see you next week with a new guest. And next week we will be discussing the area LGA of Onka